What it do, everybody? It's your man Dame the NYDC, and here again with me tonight is my man Big A Sam Adams. What's good, bro?
What's going on? You can call me Panama Jack today since I got on my my luau shirt.
Man, you chilling, man. You know what I'm saying? Look, it's that time, it's that season. It's still summertime, man. Enjoying it. Looks good on you. You know what I'm saying?
Trying to make it do while we can till this fall hit.
I understand, man. I'm right there with you. Trying to do the same and enjoy the rest of summer. Rocking my Giants blue tonight. And just excited, man, to get to be back and talk about football. And
Yep.
tonight, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, wherever you at, thanks for joining us, man. Let us know where you are in the comments. Whatever side of the ball you on, tight ends, safeties, whatever team you rocking with. Let Sam and I know, and we want to hear from you tonight, man. Really appreciate you being here. And I want to touch on, Sam, before we got on, one of our partners, man, hit us up in the chat, man. Tom Brady,
Yeah,
all this.
yeah. I know. I felt like what's the dude that be on ESPN? Adam Schefter. You know what I'm
Breaking news, right?
saying? Like
I,
this just in. Hold on.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was like, yeah, reading it, Tom Brady, allegedly, they trying to say is making a move back to the NFL, uh, to the Tampa Bay Bucks, of all places. I mean, he does have
Mhm.
history, but I'm curious to know, like, what are your thoughts? Because I know, reading it, I was like, man, this has got to be clickbait.
I felt like it was too. I think it's just. I mean, Todd Bowles is going in what year two
Yeah, two of them. Yeah,
of being the head coach.
yeah,
So uh, in this day and age with the NFL coaching carousel, like I wouldn't be shocked as far as like whether or not this is a make or break season for him.
right,
But at the same time, like I feel like if Tom Brady was to sit here and come back, he'd probably be like a player coach. You know
right,
what I'm saying? Like he's looking at Baker and be like, get your ass off the field, like let me go ahead and show you how it's done. I don't know
right.
how. I mean, I know that when it comes to the science of the sport, that on the offensive side, he's. I mean, you can't say nothing about him. He has 7 rings to sit here and shut anybody down.
Right.
But at the same time, too, no knock against him. I just don't know how that would correlate. Even the thought of him becoming a head coach for a
Agreed.
team, it's bound to happen. I mean, shoot, people were sitting there saying the same thing about Peyton Manning once he retired, that he was going to get in the game and become a coach and everything too. So
Right.
that speculation always hovers around a player with that type of high caliber performance and
I agree.
IQ.
I agree with you. I think right now, just with the money alone,
Hmm.
that he just got, I think with Fox or whoever, I mean,
Yeah,
$375 million.
yeah,
That's a lot to walk away from, even for Tom Brady. But
exactly.
I do believe, and this just reminds me of the whole spin, um, to that happened in New York with him, when he was with the Jets. And it's a win now league. I mean, we watch it.
Yeah,
They recycling head coaches like toilet paper.
yeah,
One bad season, you sign this coach to all this money, one bad season, and then next thing you know, they're gone. And I think Todd Bowles is back in the same situation.
right.
I hate to say that he's a scapegoat or he is the scapegoat. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Hmm.
you know, Big Dave, what's happening? That's right. All hail the Giants. We in the building. Represent.
Hey,
Couldn't
Dave, I'll
say
let
it
you have that one.
better. Hopefully we gonna do better this year, man. We gonna show out. Um, but like I was saying with Tom, he can't stay. I just think his ultimate love for football, I agree with you,
Hmm.
was eventually going to bring him back to the NFL on the sidelines in some shape, form, or manner. Um, if I had to be honest, like I said, he does have history with Tampa Bay, but I just don't see it. I think
Right.
it's more of, I can see him. with those ties in New England, really, if things just start falling apart in New England, I can
Yeah.
definitely see him stepping in as head coach, there in New England, and really trying to help resurrect that franchise through, I don't want to say their struggles, but it hasn't been the same since he's been there. So, I
Yeah.
think that's a wait and see type thing. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Don't hold your breath on it.
yeah,
Like
I'm not,
yeah, and
mm,
that goes for anybody that's listening right now and viewing us right now. I wouldn't hold my breath on that, but at the same time, like I wouldn't be surprised. It'd just be like, okay, all right, let's
yeah,
see what's about
yeah.
to happen.
Yeah, I see it after the $375 million contract has come to an end. So
Yeah,
I'm not giving up that type of bread
yeah.
to jump back on the sideline.
He
But
might pull a Prince and be like, "This bores me. Let me."
yeah, I mean, it's to be seen. But I think like I said, I thought it was clickbait, but it was good conversation to start
Yeah,
tonight's conversation, because what we're talking about tonight, we're talking about tight ends and safeties, right?
yeah.
You got your safety blankets and you got them heavy hitters and those ball hawks. And as we were preparing, for tonight, I just kind of went back to reminisce, some of the all-time greats, on both sides, Dave Casper with the Raiders, Kellen Winslow.
Hmm.
I mean, Tony G was a monster. Can't
Oh yeah.
forget Grump.
Hmm.
Tatum with the Raiders on the other side. One of my favorite was Steve Atwater, man. He was a heavy hitter. Can't leave out Troy Polamalu. I think one of the most talented. Uh, Ed Reed. I mean, and the list could just
Hmm.
go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Uh, but those guys were what came to mind for me, and I'm curious to know for you, Sam, like putting your list together tonight and really diving in. Did you use any type of, was it the eye test? Was it any type of analytics or whatever that made you kind of pick the five that you were going with tonight? Because I know I did. So I'm just curious to know from
Hmm.
you, from what perspective did you kind of, work your list?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to front. I didn't catch every game last season, but
Hmm.
you catch enough to kind of get a feel, especially when it came to like the playoffs or like primetime games that happen,
Right.
and just the performance. What at least my picks, what they did while they were out on the field. The stats might not match them,
Right.
due to certain things, and we'll discuss that, as we get more into our picks and everything. But it was kind of like, we I don't think anybody would be surprised at like my top two. Those are
Yeah.
going to be like the obvious ones,
Yeah.
but I had sprinkled a couple of other pockets in there, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I kind of want to say, I think unanimously, and I was going to say, Dave, you in the woods, man, you want to holler. I think, um, hey, Bavaro, yep, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we know, Dave, you shouting them out some greats, from our favorite team. That
Jeremy Shockey was a beast, though.
he was a beast.
Yeah, I can't deny that one.
Can't,
I
definitely,
think about who is it? Mercedes Lewis,
yeah. Another one,
Michael Finley,
some
Jermichael Finley from the
Jermichael Finley,
Packers.
yeah. Hmm.
Who else was out there in San Diego? Because you brought up Kellen Winslow,
Oh,
who
and
he
they
was like a
had,
two-way. He had like that slot.
yeah.
Who was the other big
You
guy
talking
that they
about
had?
Gates?
Yeah,
Talking about
Antonio
Antonio
Gates.
Gates? Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Oh, Jason Witten.
Oh man,
I
another
can't.
monster. Can't leave out
Yeah,
Jason Witt. He was a monster, man.
yeah,
Hated that dude. Yeah, man. He
yeah,
killed the giant man. Well, he killed just about anybody, man, during that era and during that run.
yeah.
Um, and that's for me too. I think when we talk about tight ends, I think for the most part in today's NFL,
You
um,
said
you
that
know,
bum from Dallas.
I mean, yeah, we gonna hate him, but I mean, I gotta be honest and clear
Yeah.
across, we talking about exactly, he was a bum, but I hated that dude, for real. But today's game, I think there's really three guys that probably separate themselves from the
Hmm.
rest of the pack.
Yeah.
But I think there's some other players that definitely, bring a level of competition that you really have to plan for. And for me, it was a lot of the eye test, but I tried to really look at guys that really stood out in both areas. I like a guy that can run block, that
Hmm.
can pass block, but can also create, that one-on-one separation where you really have to worry about him sometimes coming across the middle of the field. Some of
Yep.
these guys now, they have the speed and the athleticism, like you said, like almost like a slot receiver,
Yeah.
to really challenge, not only the linebacker but the safety that's over the top. So
Hmm.
some of the guys that I chose tonight really fit that criteria. But I agree with you. There's one or two guys that I mean clearly are the cut above, and I'm just looking forward to go ahead and jump into it. And again, I see some of you guys in the weeds like, hey, let us know where you at. Let us know who you rocking with. Drop a word in the comments, man. We really hope you enjoyed tonight's conversation. So without further ado, Sam, we're gonna get started. I'm gonna let you open up, and
Okay.
I'm ready to hear who you have as your number five, a tight end.
Okay. That's too easy. My number five hails from the city of Los Angeles.
Okay,
Um, he's a Ram.
okay,
I'm going with Tyler Higbee.
okay.
Now, granted, he didn't have the best 2023 season because he did get injured.
Yeah,
But like when we were talking about that versatility,
yeah.
um, man, he was like chipping away with Matt Stafford and again
Mm-hmm.
in that secondary, and just the way that he was able to move out of the slot or out of the pocket, from the line and line up in the
Right,
receiver slot, and like whether it was a streak or a quick doggone bootleg, he was able to break himself apart, and he had that quickness and agility to get down the field. So I'm expecting him, if the line is straight for the Rams, if Matt come back, with his same, passing awareness. I don't want to say accuracy because it was like case by case, depending on who they played.
right.
But if he could get the man to rock, like I'm expecting him to leverage all of that 6'6" height with that quickness, and we really just going to have to wait and see how he's going to rebound coming off of, playing half a season off of an injury. So he was my
Yeah.
number five.
Yeah, I think that was a good pick, and I want to throw I'm gonna throw that quick yes in there because I think it was a great pick, and I struggled with because he was one of the guys that for me was at that 5'4" slot, um,
Hmm.
but didn't cut it for me because when like I said I was looking at guys a little more athletic
Right.
and gave a little more tangibles, and my number five guy uh was out there in Arizona,
Okay.
Trey McBride. And, I'm just going to look at some of my notes here, man. Just some of the things I took down with this guy. He was targeted 106 times. He had 81 receptions. I mean, which is mind blowing considering that he really didn't enter the starting lineup for Arizona until week
Hmm.
8. So we
Yeah.
talking about halfway through the season, and he started putting up these numbers. And from that point on, I mean, he caught 66 passes at that time, for 665 yards and 3 touchdowns. And what's really crazy about that, it was Kyler Murray wasn't even there at the start of the season, right?
Hmm.
So when you kind of put that on, look at the big picture and you put those numbers on pace, he was looking at 112, targets, add another 10 receptions, and he really could have really broke the mold or broke higher into, I think this discussion. And now you fast forward, he's coming in, you got Marvin Harrison Jr.,
Yeah.
that's now you can line them up on the same side of the field. Where now you got to really that safety has to decide, you know, how much he's going to play over the top. If they're going to try to let Harrison go deep, and who's going to cover, is linebacker going to be able to cover Trey McBride over the middle? Like, so it causes a lot of havoc, I think. And I think Arizona really has a bright future, with him. And I think his role is really going to grow, here in his third year. And I think sky's the limit, for him in Arizona. And it gives Kyler Murray, like we talk about, that perfect safety blanket, to where again you don't have to make those deep throws all the time. You have a guy underneath, and they have a pretty solid running game with Connor. As long as he doesn't get hurt, because he's
Yeah.
been injury prone coming out of the backfield. But
Yeah.
I think the overall picture right now, I think it's brighter in Arizona, uh, moving forward. And I think they're going to be a very interesting team coming out of the West in the NFC this year.
Okay. All right. I take that.
All
I
right,
wasn't
so
even thinking about him. That's a sleeper for me. I was like,
well,
okay, I see what you're doing.
so I had a couple of guys, man, that like Higby was one that was at the bottom of my list that I really had a hard time thinking about. Uh, the brother in Cleveland, David Njoku, he was another
Yeah.
one. He had a really monster year, but the only reason why I picked that was really the first year that he really showed up.
Yeah.
Another brother I really looked at coming out of Jacksonville. And again, look, I'm a Giant. I still have ties. I'm still mad that we let Evan Ingram, we let him go. I
Yeah.
think, he was the perfect fit, but for whatever reason in New York, it just never happened. So those were a couple of guys that I was struggling with. But McBride to me, just from the eye test and just from looking at the numbers that he did without really starting for the whole year, I think it was too impressive to overlook.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
So we're gonna roll into number 4. Who are you rocking with?
All
At your
right.
at your 4th spot.
Well, I came over there and I gave y'all this disclaimer last week that the only people that run the NFC North in my books is the Green Bay Packers. But
Gotcha.
however, I have to sprinkle some, rose petals or flowers out there, and give credit what credit is due. So I went with Sam Laporta,
Okay.
from the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
The reason why I did this, just think first off, he's a rookie. So
Yeah.
him coming in and being able to take his play style to the professional level, like right off the rip, I have to give him credit for that. My
Yeah.
man had 86 receptions. He had almost 190 yards,
Sure did.
um, averaged like 10.3 per carry.
Mm-hmm.
And he contributed to 10 touchdowns too,
Yeah.
for the season of 2023. I think he could have had more, but you look at all the offensive weapons that Detroit had.
Yeah.
Um, it just wasn't enough ball to sit here and share with
Yeah.
everybody between your
Agreed.
backfield, and St. Brown, Amron St. Brown, like going off. So, Jared Goff pretty much, the field was his playground to who he wanted to go ahead and give that rock to.
Mm-hmm.
And he really contributed to the Lions' success for
Without
last season.
question.
So I got him
Without
for my
question.
number 5. And he has the potential to be like 1,000-yard receiver,
Yeah.
1,000-yard tight end
Yeah.
for 2024. So
I couldn't agree.
like I said, I can't knock it. It leaves a little disdain when I say it. So let me go ahead and clear my palate. But I got him right there.
I'm with you, because for me it was the same thing. A lot of things that you hit on. He was my 4th pick as well. Being a rookie, uh, it's one of those things that one of those seasons that we really haven't seen,
Yeah.
from a rookie, right?
Mhm.
Same thing, 120 targets, 86 receptions, almost 900 yards, no fumbles lost,
Yeah.
which is a huge key for a tight end. But for me, what stood out with him, because they traded TJ Hawkinson, who again was
Yeah.
another one that I thought could have also made this list.
Yeah.
But they replaced, Hawkinson, who was a high end tight end as well for them. But I think the difference here is Laporte is more of a real type athlete. He can stretch the field, he
Yeah.
can create, catch the ball, and create with the ball in his hands. And it just seemed like a perfect fit, into that system. Like you said, with Armand St. Brown, Armand Raw, I'm sorry, St. Brown. It's just a dynamic combination. What they have so many horses coming out of that backfield. Um,
Yeah.
it's really hard to gauge the running game. He's not bad at blocking. And I
Mhm.
think this really watching him, I think this year, like you said, I think he's going to be a staple in that offense for a long time. The only thing I just
Mhm.
don't see, like you said, there's not enough, balls to go around, if you will. I don't
Yeah.
think he's going to see 10 touchdowns again this season, but I still think he's going to be very highly productive in their offense. And the sky's the limit for this guy, man. I think in a couple of years we'll be talking about him in the same breath as some of the other greats that are currently, playing, and we're about to get into them because, like I said, I think everybody has the three. There's really three guys that we all really focus right now, in the tight end game in NFL. But I think he's going to be breaking into that top 3 real soon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you saying that he's going to be under 10
I
for the
think so. I
season
don't
as
think
far
I
as
don't think
touchdowns?
I don't see him because, like I said, I just think with the weapons and the film that people have seen, and just
Mm-hmm.
just having to change the flow of the game. I just think there's going to be, not enough balls to go around for him to hit 10 again. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's impossible. I just don't, like I said, Amon Ross St. Brown, the other wide receiver that they have, the animals and the monsters that the horses that they really have coming out of the backfield, because they're not just running backs too. They're pretty good at catching the ball out of the backfield too. So
Yeah.
I just don't see the 10 touchdowns from him. But again, we don't know until it plays out as a long season.
Yeah, that's
So
true. All
so
right.
we're gonna transition to the third, Sam's third tight end on the list.
Yeah. Three got kind of murky, and I was thinking about it, and like this is another one that got plagued with injuries, and I'm expecting him to have a rebound year. I went with Mark Andrews
Mm-hmm.
from the Baltimore Ravens.
Right.
Like, look, he got, I want to say it was like week 7 or 8 that he got injured. But at that time, he had 45 receptions, 544 yards. He was averaging like 12.1 yards
Right.
per catch. So that he had that yak going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had 6 touchdowns. So I think that, with Lamar Jackson, um, and that Baltimore offense, like he's right up there as far as being a valuable asset to the team. So I'm expecting him to. He got to stay healthy. That's like the key thing with
Right.
everybody in every season. But like I got him up there as my one of my top three
Yeah.
that's going in. So
I,
um,
I think it's undeniable. The next three that we're talking about, I think they're without question the top three because I too, you know, I piggyback. I have to go with Mark Andrews, in Baltimore. And same thing like you said, just to piggyback on the fact that, it was really a short season for him, if you will,
yeah,
with the injuries and things like that. But I must say, he's still incredibly talented, and I think one of the most underrated tight ends because I mean he's really falling behind the other two guys.
yeah,
Injuries haven't happened, but when I looked at his numbers, again he's averaged 50 receiving yards per game, in 5 straight seasons. I mean, with injuries and all, like you mentioned, 11.6 yards per catch, which is crazy. And he does it now playing in a sometimes 2 or 3 tight end rotation in Baltimore because they really rely on their running game to
yeah,
be the premise of their offense.
yeah.
Um, throw in, like you said, Lamar's missed time too. So we've kind of missed out on that window, if you will, compared to the probably the other two that we're going to talk about.
Hmm.
But I still think he's incredibly talented, totally underrated. He's really an elite pass catcher when he's on the field. Again,
Yeah.
kind of in the mold of a slot type receiver that
He,
can do damage, you know. So I think he's
emotional
going to do
damage in the red zone.
it. Oh yeah, truly
Yeah,
emotional,
if
truly
it's within
emotional.
25 yards, you need to look out. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
he can kill you in that box, man. I mean, and that's where I think his true talents come in. Uh, Again, though, for me, the only thing, like I said, that one of the hiccups with him, uh, he's not he's not the greatest pass blocker, but in their system, they're not really asking him to do that when they're throwing those 2 and 3 tight end sets out there on the field because you really
Yeah,
have to prepare for him in that bunch set or that box set, uh, as well as the running game. So
yeah.
he's the perfect fit and the perfect marriage, for Baltimore right now and what they're doing with their offense. So hopefully he'll have a better year, this season moving forward.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think we're down to the top two. I think most of us know uh who 1 and 2 probably are, but I'm interested to see who you have at your two because I think we might have flip flopped and we might be on a different page when it comes to number two.
All right. So my number two hails from another California city, s- city of San Fran. I ain't gonna put no jokes in there. Those ain't needed. But I ain't trying to get you demonetized, so we ain't
No,
even gonna
they
go
like
there.
no, we
Yeah.
ain't gonna do that.
But
Everybody's
I
welcome here.
picked,
Everybody's welcome.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I picked George Kittle's.
Okay.
Look, he had a 1,000 yard season. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? Average 15.7 as far as like yards per catch.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he had like 6 touchdowns, but like when we get to these two that we're talking about, like I think he's that full package that you're talking about as far as like if I got a run play, he's going to block. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? If I'm throwing deep, I have the option of either lining them up on the line, putting them
Yep.
out on the wing.
Yep.
He has the speed, the agility. He will embarrass your linebackers in your
Sure
secondary
will.
with that
Sure
truck
will.
stick, and that juke mode.
Yep.
So like, there's really nothing upset. Yeah, I understand that he didn't do well in the playoffs, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I can't denounce him for the caliber of season that he had.
Right.
And being able to sit there and get doggone San Fran into the playoffs, and into the championship game.
Yeah.
So we can't sit there and hinder that from his performance. And like, even with that being said, he was still able to, like, you still had Debo Samuels and CMC running the ball and
Yep.
everything.
Yep.
And we were just talking about block protection right
Yeah.
there.
Right.
And Kittles will line up with whoever. So it didn't matter whoever was in front of him, if it was for the greater good of the game, in order for them to win.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's that true supporting cast that you need, that you will remember him just for the work that he did while he was on the field versus, some of the other tight ends that we're not even talking about.
Agreed. And you and I, like I said, there was the flip flop on that, and here's where I went, the other route, and probably the non popular route. I went with Travis Kelsey, and a lot of it due to the fact that if we're just talking straight numbers, he's one of the best safeties ever uh, to probably play the game in NFL history. We can all agree to that. And where the difference was, like Dave said, and you mentioned, Kittles didn't have the best playoffs. I think we saw the best from Kelsey in the playoffs in this
Yeah.
past season. I mean,
Hmm.
this guy was targeted over 120 times last year. He had 93 receptions, which is bananas. Uh,
Hmm.
just under 1,000 yards receiving. He
Yeah.
had 5 touchdowns. Now he did have a fumble that he lost, but him and Patrick Mahomes is this magic, in a bottle. They've had the pleasure of playing together for so long, and just it is exactly they got him the ball, and I think part of it too is by nature of their offense last year, where their wide receivers really didn't show up, and young
Yeah.
guys and really learning the process and things. A lot of it really fell on Kelsey to really produce. Now they do have a young tight end, and I meant to write his name. I had his name, but they've I think for them this year, and the reason why I have him at number 2, one, he's not a great pass blocker, but he's not really asked
Hmm.
to. But they have
Yeah.
the other young fella that's a tight end that again he brings a lot of the same similarities and skill sets that Kittle does, and I think for his best health and for his longevity. I mean, he is, 30 plus now. It's a lot of
Yeah.
miles and a lot of wear and tear on the body. For him again to show up and be his best again for Kansas City, especially when they're going to need him again on this third championship run, for a title, I think they're going to have to give him breaks. They're going to have to give him rest. So this year, I don't think his target ratio, his reception ratio will be as high. I just
Hmm.
After a while, I just think you have to prepare for the long haul. I mean, they've played a lot of football, not just the last 3. I mean, we talking about the last 5, 6 years, man. I mean,
5 years. Yeah.
it's been a grind, and I just think at some point, you've got to. Yeah, Dave. I mean, yeah. I mean, we got the whole Swifties and everything going on. He's going to get married. He might want to be able to be around and have some Swifty kids and do whatever they're going to do. But I just think you have to transition, and he's still at the apex. He's definitely a number 1 or 2, depending on what list you're looking at and what you're looking for. But for me, um, he's going to transition back into the number 2 spot, and that's where I have him at. Tonight for me.
Well, kind sir.
Okay, give it to me.
I object. My
Okay,
my number one just so happens to be Travis Kelsey. And
okay.
in the words of the great Ric Flair, to be the best, you got to beat the best. We're talking
Hey,
about a 3-time Super Bowl champion.
hey.
Um, I'm not going to go back on when it comes to his performance from last year, like you said, because you went ahead and gave him his stats, but he does everything just as long as he has Patrick Mahomes and Otto.
Yeah.
Um, I think that he's going to continue to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just as long as there's no mutiny with that chemistry right there,
Right.
like he's always going to be that top tier. We already know that he's a guaranteed Hall of Famer,
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
without a doubt,
Oh
with
yeah.
his stats
Oh yeah.
over the past what 8 years, 7 years,
Yeah. Ridiculous
give or
numbers,
take.
man.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
So he's my number one. So in order for the other four tight ends that we spoke about, in order for them to they're in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But even with Kittles, for me, the championship will cements everything that I spoke of him. That's we say the same thing about quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What would put a quarterback top tier with everyone else? And
Right.
for me, like you know, for Kittles, it would be the same thing. If he can bring a championship to doggone San Fran, we'll be good to go. And we could have this conversation next year, and he'll probably, will surpass him for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. And Dave, look, we gotta be careful here, man. We don't want to drug. There's painful feelings, man. Giants messed up and didn't do a lot of things, but yeah, I mean, hindsight is 2020. Even with who wouldn't, knowing what we know now, who wouldn't love the opportunity to have a Patrick Mahomes, as an option to pick?
mhm,
We haven't done a lot of things right in New York, and I'm just going to be totally upfront. We can't get our offensive line together. We've been talking about this offensive line for 10 years. And no disrespect to Danny Dimes, I'm a homer. Again, we wasted $40 million on a guy that had one good season. So, you know, we have to look at management. We have to look at the totality of things. But who's to say that in New York that Patrick Mahomes would be Patrick Mahomes?
mhm.
Again,
Yeah,
there's a lot of moving pieces that go
yeah.
into this team building. But yeah, man, hindsight being what it is, man, give me Patrick any day.
You
He's
can sit
worth
here and invest. You can invest in a quarterback, but like, what are you going to put around him to make him
exactly,
successful?
exactly.
So, like, it, I hate to say it, but maybe if he went to the Giants, we'll be talking about. And I know we're skirting away from like our safeties and our tight
No,
ends,
it's okay. It's okay.
um, but what's the probability of us sitting here and we wouldn't be talking about Patrick Mahomes in the same caliber that if we had a conversation about like RG3? You know what I'm
Exactly. Okay,
saying?
that's a
Or
good one.
David Carr
Hmm.
or any of these other like high caliber quarterbacks that came out of college that we knew that was NFL ready.
Right.
Think about the carousel that the doggone Commanders had
Oh boy.
between Kirk Cousins,
Jeez.
Colt McCoy,
Who?
RG3,
Yeah.
and we could go like on and on. Like
Yeah.
they got some number one draft picks when it came to the QB core, right?
Yep.
But they didn't build an old line to sit there and support that
Hmm.
quarterback. And like either they were injury prone,
Right.
bust out with concussions and popped out knees and twisted ankles and everything. So like it's yes. Just look at the two O lines between doggone New York. Which O line would you want? Would you want KC O line, or do you want to put your money on the Giants,
And
on the G
and
men?
and that goes back to, like, last week's topic. When we talked about O line and D line, it's the game starts in the trenches.
Yeah.
And for those of you, you watching, joining, hey, drop us a comment. Thank you for joining us. Go back and watch. We talked about it last week, man, with the O line and the D line.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the teams that are competitive, and you look at the teams that are, making their way into that playoff hunt, you need those big hogs and up front. It's not rocket science if you really think about it. And if you spend the money, and you're right, Dave, we need Amazon to come deliver, in New York. We need a
Same day
plethora.
delivery.
I mean, we need it now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, who's gonna call it what it is? We need
Yeah.
that same day delivery. And we've been talking about the same thing. And again, though, like I said, if you look at most of the teams, like you brought up the Commanders, and we're just talking about in the NFC East, you can say
Yeah.
the same thing, in the North where you are with Green Bay and everything.
Yep.
If you're not building up front, you know, you know, what up, Bone? I appreciate it, man. Taylor, Carson, the linebackers and all that, man, they were dope. But if you don't start up front and you wait, and I don't want to say waste because again, I'm not the GM, but I'm sorry, looking at what they wasted on Danny Dimes, 40 million, you're not going to get that back. And the
No.
pieces that you could have put on your offensive line, your
Hmm.
defensive line, the linebackers like Dave was talking about. Go out and get you a couple of corners. That $40 million could have got you two, maybe three, and even if they were on short-term deals to make you
Hmm.
competitive, so that you can build through the draft. But
Yeah.
hey, this is why we doing this here on the side, and this is why we having this conversation.
Which is true, because somebody, you ain't damn professionals. But I tell you
Right.
what, hey, look, I'd rather have a decent line than
Exactly.
and an okay quarterback. You know what
Exactly.
I'm saying?
Exactly.
Just as long as the quarterback can do, here, pass the ball. You know what I'm
That's it.
saying?
Right. Right.
That's all that you need. So I agree with you. I think the investment is really in the wrong department right there. And then now you have disgruntled fans. Now you have a doggone coaching staff that, like, I don't know if we go to financially, recoup, after this season and everything. And then it's going to put Danny Dimes on the chopping block too.
Oh, without
You
question.
know what I'm
Without
saying? Because
question.
his play is going to be questioned like throughout the whole season.
Yeah, it has
Yeah,
to
I agree
be.
with you. They should have kept
They should have kept Tyrod. Yeah,
Tyrod.
I
Yep.
mean they 100%. I mean that one right there, one of the dumbest moves. I just like I said again, and this is what I'm saying. So Dave, you're right. If you can run the ball, and we've seen it. You look at the Ravens team. With what's his name when they won the Super Bowl. He was the game manager. I mean, they called him a game manager. Oh, geez, in that second run, man, his name is slipping me because
It wasn't Rice, was it?
no, he's on TV now. But basically, I mean, he was
Uh,
a, he was a game manager for them. Their defense won, the Super Bowl for him, and I,
oh,
I think there's
Ingram.
nothing. No, the quarterback. I can't think of his name. I want to I want to say Hasselback, but it's not Hasselback. It's the other guy. But long
Oh,
story, you can win in the NFL, like Dave said. You put yourself in a position, you run
Flacco.
the ball. Not he was before Flacco, the one that they won before Flacco.
Damn.
Yeah, I'm gonna move past it because I'm
You
drawing a
gotta
blank.
stop us. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah, I'm,
David,
I'm
help us out.
yeah, right. Somebody drop it in the chat.
Yeah.
But as long as you can run, you don't put your quarterback. That's it. Dilfer. That's the guy. Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, he sucked ass. No, no
Right,
disrespect.
right. But I'm just saying, this is a guy that
Yeah.
he managed. Right. They asked him
Yeah,
not to
he knew
turn the
the
ball.
assignment.
Right. He knew the assignment. Don't turn the ball
Hmm.
over. Keep the game manageable so that the defense could always, if they need to make a big play, special teams, whatever it was, he managed the game. And yes, yeah, I mean, he was
Yeah.
he was trash, but it can happen. We've seen it
Yeah.
happen, and there's been other instances of it where you can remain competitive with your guys up front. So, you know,
Yeah.
I I agree, with all of that, and it's up for debate. And I think we had a great first half just talking about tight ends, and I think that, like I said, the top three I think we agreed on just in different perspectives, different ways. But there's a future full of tight ends that I think that are coming back. So right now we're just gonna go ahead and transition for a second. We're gonna go ahead and jump in, to the safeties that's coming up next. But before we do, I just want to take a moment, man. I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to go ahead and take a moment to thank our sponsors here: TD3 Insurance, Riddick Entertainment, 94 Media House, and TD3 Enterprises for really supporting Two Mics Up, for helping us go live and really help you bring new content and conversation to you all each and every week. So again, thank you all for being here. Um, and what you got for me, Dave? I see you drop something else here. Let me get this here to come up in the comments. Uh, hey, you know, trash is trash, and things happen. Can't win everyone, but you know that's the life of sports. But you got to be competitive to have your behind kicked. In Super Bowl and championship moments. So we're gonna move on to the safeties, and since you started off in the first half, I'm gonna jump in. And for me, looking at the criteria for safeties, man, back in the days, man, they were heavy hitters. I mean, let's just
Yeah.
call it what it was. There were some real heavy hitters back in the day, and like one of my favorite guys, and I mentioned it in the beginning, was Steve Atwater. I mean, I think he was just a
Hmm.
monster over the middle. Uh, if I go to our division in the NFC East, I mean, Brian Dawkins was a problem. Like
Hmm.
you didn't really want to.
The
You had to have,
Wolverine.
yeah, man. You had to have your head on a swivel because he was just such a beast. Uh, and today's game has kind of changed in a minute. I don't want to say there's not as many heavy hitters, but you have more athletic, safeties that can really there's free safeties and safeties kind of changed, from how probably when we play football, your free safety was that range guy, played the deep center, your strong safety more
Yeah.
in the box. Today's game, like I said, with the athleticism, it really doesn't really, they're kind of interchangeable. And my number five guy, man, I had to go to New England. I went with
Okay.
Kyle Duggar. I really think that he showed more versatility last year than he ever did before. He played more snaps last year than he did as a safety during more so than his first three NFL seasons combined, which is really crazy. Um, he can slide into the slot, and he can still come up and play the run when called upon. And in my opinion, I think he's versatile enough to cover just about any tight end in the league. Now, the thing for me that really stood out for me when I watched some of his game tape and some of the things that I was able to find on him specifically, he's really good with his hands and to be able to get his hands on the ball and really pressure, the receiver when it comes to him making catches. And
Hmm.
he does a great job when he's really asked to really rush the passer, which again I think is another one of those things in the Troy Polamalu type style where you can put him up on the line and he can create an added rush passer. So Douglas just really stood out to me, and he was my number five guy. And I'm interested to see what he's going to do for New England as they move on. So it's going to be an interesting year with them as they try to revamp and grow.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I am going with who do I have? Javon Holland.
Right.
Yep, out of
Well,
Miami.
okay.
Uh, I mean, if you look at 2022 and try to compare it to 2023, his tackles went down a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
um, but he did have a couple of pickles this past season. He actually
Mm-hmm.
ran one back for 99 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're going into year four. You've been in, dang, I forgot their head coach, young cat, but
Oh,
you're
the
going year four into a defensive system.
mm-hmm.
So, you're comfortable with it. So, I have the same thing. I'm expecting him to do great things for 2024 in that
Right.
defense because that defense did carry them a lot in this past season. And don't get me wrong, like you think about all the weapons that they got between Waddle and doggone Tariq Hill and Tua, even though he's still on the chopping block as far as his QB capabilities. But when they needed the ball back,
Questionable.
yeah,
Questionable.
when they
Yep.
when they needed the ball back, what I'm saying, Holland was right in there in the trenches,
Mm-hmm.
helping out.
Yeah, I think Miami definitely on the defensive side. They definitely have some mojo and some juice. Same thing.
Yeah.
My thing with and I have a buddy, that I work with. He's a big Tua fan. And my thing with Tua, I mean, he just gets small when the lights are on. When you really put him
Yeah.
under the cooker, I mean, he shrivels up like a hot dog. You know what I mean? So it's still to be seen how much of a quarterback or what type of quarterback he's going to develop into. But with all of that talent on offense, man, that's a unit that's just sickening to watch them because it's like a video game watching them sometimes with Hill and Waddle and the Mostart and the young boy Chain coming out of the backfield.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. So to see what
It's too
they're
much.
yeah, it's a lot, man, going on in Miami. But Tua, like you said, I mean, he's the engine that drives it all. So it's going to be really interesting to see what he does in Miami. And I moved south uh for my fourth choice. And this kid, man, I think he's pretty dope, man. I went with Bates out there in Atlanta. He's probably the preeminent ball hawking safety right now in the league. He had 10 interceptions, across the last 2 seasons since he's arrived in Atlanta. I mean, the boy is everywhere, man. It seems like when you go back and watch some of their game films and film and highlight, the brother is like everywhere, man. I mean, he really does it all. He can play the deep part of the field, and pretty much he takes it all away. I mean, he just has that agility and that quickness to open up at the hips, as they like to say, and be able to move in any
Hey,
direction.
listen.
Yeah, and he's I mean, he's just something to watch. When they're really going. I mean, obviously, he's playing for Raheem Morris. Sis, what's happening? Thanks for joining us. Um, he should flourish, in a similar manner, that he already has. I mean, Raheem is definitely more of a defensive minded coach, so I only see continued upside with Jesse. And like I said, Raheem has been able to get the most out of talented safeties and across his stops in the NFL. So Jesse Bates should still be, considered one of the top ones to watch, coming into 2024.
Okay. All right, I like that one. My number doing number four, right? Yeah, my number four. I went back to the city of Bmore,
Okay.
Baltimore. The crab cake capital of the world, soft shelled crab. Uh, this one was tough for me because I was like, man, I could put like the whole doggone Baltimore secondary back there. Like,
Mm,
what I'm saying? There's too many names we could bring up with
yeah.
Braid and Hamilton and
Yeah.
Jackson and Kane. Like, but this one in particular for a rookie season,
Yeah.
I think that he did really well. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? 35 solo tackles. He had an interception. Um, he had 35 solos. He assisted in about 20 of those tackles. Um, Not much on that interception. I mean, it still contributed maybe like 22 yards or something like that for the game. But
Yeah.
like, I mean, with those stats, like, once again, I'm looking for if there's one thing that we're going to discuss with Baltimore is their defense.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to play a big part on that, and
Right.
I just can't wait to see what he do for the 2024 season. So I got him as my number four.
So ironically, you mentioned Baltimore, defensively and their secondary, and you nailed everything because I too, went I went with Marcus Williams, but I have him at my number
Yeah.
three,
Okay.
and he's my number three guy. And for all the same things that you mentioned, I think they have one of the best secondaries, especially in the safety game right now.
Yeah.
Um, the crazy thing about Marcus is that I found that this brother's never been to a Pro Bowl. He's never been on an all Pro team, which is crazy. But he's one of those guys that can just really cover the deep portion of the field. Um, you know, he did that in New Orleans. You saw that a lot while he was in New Orleans. He brought that same aspect when he came over to Baltimore. I mean, he had 10 a career high of 10 breakups. I mean, so people were targeting him, a lot,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. So 10 breakups though, man, that's a lot of breakups. And he only allowed, 14 touchdowns while he was in coverage. So I mean, we talking about this 17, 18 weeks in NFL season. So that's less than one touchdown, a game. So I mean, it's pretty incredible, watching what he's done on the field and what he's been able to bring to that Baltimore secondary.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't see it dropping off. I just don't
Hmm.
right now. I think, and like you said, you talk about Baltimore. I mean, I got a couple of crab cakes on my list. I'm not even gonna lie. I got a couple of the crab cakes on my list, man. So yeah, he's definitely one of them, definitely to watch, and he's my number three guy.
Okay. Well, if you tuned in last season, I mean not last season, but last week, I was biased as hell with some of my picks, just for GP because I believe in the other shade of green with Green Bay. But I have another rookie on my list, and I picked Xavier Williams. I mean Xavier McKinney. My bad. I said Xavier Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
throwing two names in there.
Right, right.
Xavier McKinney. Look, my man had 116 for his rookie season.
Mm.
116. Doggone total tackles for the season. 78 were solo. Assisted in 38 of them. He had a forced fumble. My man had three pickles. You know what I'm
Oh wow,
saying?
that's
So
that's
like
nice.
that's that complete. You know what I'm saying? When we look at like a contributing all across the field,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like my man's was right there. He even had a sack.
Yeah.
So like I me as being a Green Bay fan, I can't ask for nothing more, besides, the rest of our secondary getting their shit together. But that's
And
another
showing up, right?
discussion.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. That's a whole nother, like get
Between
your act
him
together.
and Jahir Alexander, those my two go-to on doggone defense. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad that we got rid of Owens. Love Simone Biles, but
You
your
thought he was
husband was a
trash.
bum.
You thought he
Yeah.
was trash.
Oh,
You right there.
absolutely.
You know-
Hey, look. Hey, David, you could throw up a dumpster fire emoji or something like that. That's how I felt about him when he was getting doggone, not hawked down, but when he was getting doggone dusted in that secondary or breaking coverage or not reading the coverage or the route correctly. And I'm like, what is this dude doing?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then at least they didn't pan into Simone Biles the way that they were
Uh,
with Taylor
Taylor
Swift and
Swift, right?
doggone Travis Kelsey. You know what I'm saying? Simone probably would have
um,
been like had her head down, like shaking in
yeah.
disappointment or something like that.
She like, yeah,
But
that he mine. Yeah, nah,
yeah,
he ain't
but
with
that
me.
two-headed monster right there in the
Yeah,
secondary between him and Jahir, like I like it.
yeah,
We had a couple of more. We added to our secondary, which I was surprised
right,
during the draft. So there's a lot of questions around that defense and around that secondary, and
yeah,
especially when you look at the NFC North, like who's going to pair up, who you going to have line up with those weapons in Detroit.
right.
Doggone Minnesota. Oh, and we didn't even bring up bum ass Chicago.
Yeah,
What they did in their offseason,
yeah,
minus Caleb Williams, but they added more pieces to their receiving core to go along with more.
more. Yeah,
So like that's just more doggone trouble. So like, what are we going to do to keep that birth certificate saying that we're the Bears pappy?
yeah.
So
Hey
so
man, it's gonna be interesting this year, man.
yeah,
With that.
I really feel because every season we talk about like that one dominant conference, but
Yeah,
I have a good feeling about the NFC North just in general because I
yeah.
don't think there's been as much buzz around it.
No,
I just hope that Green Bay could keep their name in the conversation, not exploring the free agency like
right.
everybody else did,
That did. Yeah,
because they're a homegrown type of team.
right.
You know what I'm saying? We're just going to rely on our draft picks and whatever flourishes from there would go. So I hope with the defensive picks that they had, we'll still be in that conversation. I'm
I
not worried
mean,
about the D line with Kenny Clark and the rest of them,
they've
but
done a
like,
good job, man. I mean,
yeah,
they're very good at that. Like you said, using their picks. Unlike some of the other teams, like I said, I mean, being a historic franchise, but they are a small market.
yeah,
So being able to use their picks wisely, use their cap space wisely, they really tend not to be heavy in free agency. So
yeah,
we've seen the transition, I think, from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, and I think for the most part has been pretty successful. And I think we really have gotten an opportunity to see what Jordan Love is capable, and they've surrounded him. I
right.
mean, if I'm going to be honest, you have some really, really under the radar wide
Receivers.
receivers. Yeah,
Oh
man,
yeah.
that I think this year are going to probably make a name for themselves. Watson
Hmm.
and Reed and the other young
Wicks.
brother
I
Wicks.
wouldn't
Yeah,
even look. I really wouldn't even include. I Christian Watson is a good player
yeah,
when he's healthy.
yeah. When he's
You know what
healthy.
I'm saying? But we're
Hmm.
going like 2 or 3 seasons with him having injuries. I mean, even during doggone training camp,
Hmm.
he messed up his calf.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So like, I like I said, Wicks. Um, who else we got?
you got the
Hold
boy
on, right
Reed. You got
quick.
the young boy Reed, and uh
Yeah, Dobbs,
Dobbs is another one. Yeah.
Heath, Hicks, Reed, like Torre, because Torre showed
Hmm.
up. He got hurt last season,
Yeah.
but like before he was injured, like he was really contributing, and
Hmm.
so like they're going. Watson, I think, really has. his number one spot is really in jeopardy
It could be in
because
jeopardy with the talent behind them. Yeah,
we could sit here and we could put any of those names that we said before, which they filled in for him as the number one.
and they did a great
Yeah,
job.
yeah. So
Hmm.
like, like I could sleep good on the offensive side, but like
Yeah,
that defensive side, like I said, we need to get over. They need to cover. That secondary just
hmm,
need to sit here and doggone cover somebody.
right,
You know what I'm saying? Put a stop when it's like 3rd and 4. You
right,
know what I'm
right.
saying?
Get
When
off
you
the
need it
field
to
when
give
you
your
need it.
defense
Yeah,
a
yeah,
rest. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So that's what's important right there. If we could do that, then yeah, we'll be in that conversation. And the secondary really has a lot to do with that this season.
Agreed. I mean, it's going to be challenging. Like you said, you look at the North because, like you said, a lot of people don't talk about it. I mean, I think a lot of people right now are kind of giving Detroit the handoff there on the last leg of the four by four 100. Because I
Hmm.
mean they've finally ascended over the last
Yeah.
couple of years. Minnesota don't really know what kind of mess that's going to be. What quarterback. I mean, look, we talk about Sam Darnold. I don't know, and then JJ is a rookie. Don't know, and like you
Yeah.
said, Chicago they've given Caleb the tools and the keys to the car. But again,
Yeah.
let's be honest, people. He is a rookie, and we've seen, what's happened. I mean, look at Justin Fields. I mean, super talented guy, but I mean, I think his ego and everything just got destroyed in Chicago. And again, he had less talent. That doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily mean that Caleb Williams is going to succeed with more talent, but because he's a rookie, let's just call it what it is. So
Right.
there's a lot of things in play, but it's going to be interesting in the NFC North this year. And transitioning back to what we were talking about, my number two guy, like I said, I had a lot of crab cakes in my barrel.
Hmm.
I had to go with Kyle Hamilton, and you know, essentially he's a monster or an oversized slot corner, in my opinion. He can play in the box, he can play high on the field.
Hmm.
He's I think one of the most unique safeties in the game today. And like we talked earlier, the game has kind of changed where you have this hybrid athletic type of guy that can cover, can come down in the box, he can pass rush. He finished last season with 4 interceptions, 5
Hmm.
pass breakups. He has 16 pressures, and this one, like I had to look and like this dude had 40 run stops. So he's really like what you said earlier, one of those guys that's really everywhere, and
Hmm.
he's bringing you some type of action or stat across all parts of the field, and really brings it on that defense. Um,
Yep.
and with Mike McDonald, I think that he left uh, Baltimore's defense. I really don't think anything's going to change in Baltimore, especially in that secondary. I really think that right now, Kyle is really at the place where he can only get better.
Yeah.
And when you have him and Marcus Williams back there, man, roaming your backfield, kind of giving you that coverage over top and in the box. Baltimore's going to be tough, man, again this year. And we talk about the same thing, I think, right now, like most people year after year when it comes to Baltimore. I think it comes down to the play calling with Harbaugh and the actual in game decisions, by Lamar. And I
Yeah.
think that's really, when you look at them across the board, we've been talking about them just like Buffalo the last 5 or 6 years, getting over that hump. I just think that that's the biggest thing right now. It really falls on Harbaugh and Lamar to really be in tune offensively, because I think they have enough on the defensive side to be competitive.
Yeah.
Uh, is this going? It just falls on the coach and the quarterback, in my opinion, at this time.
Yeah. He had 3 sacks for the season too, and a forced fumble.
And that's
But
what the
like you
dude.
said, how he was all around the field and everything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're asking for a complete player in your secondary, like that's the guy that you
That's
want.
that's the guy you want. My
Yep.
money's on Kyle. That's my number two. So we moving into the final spot as we come around here to the back end. So who you got in your number one spot, Sam? Well, actually, I'll tell you what. Since you start,
All right.
I'll go ahead and I'll carry on. Then I'm going to go ahead
Excuse me.
and I'm going to just jump on in.
Mhm.
Actually, no, you on your number two. I'm sorry, I'm moving ahead. I'm
Yeah.
moving too fast.
No, no, no. That's cool.
Mhm.
All right. My number two. I went with the pick that you had earlier. I went with Jesse Bates.
Okay.
I got him as my number two. I
Okay.
mean, 132 combined tackles for the season, 6 pickles. Like,
She's a monster, man.
man, like he
Man.
was a doggone ball hawk. So with that being said, like, um, and you just look at it like, yeah, Atlanta didn't have the best season. I mean, let's
Yeah.
just keep it funky with the NFC South,
Trash.
but there's
Go
there's one
ahead.
thing that I can say is that like their defense showed up when they were
Yes.
supposed to. I mean,
Yeah.
damn, they showed up against my Packers and I was
Sure
pissed
did.
off. Well,
They sure
Bijan
did.
Robinson actually showed up and like really made me mad right there. That dude is a monster in the
He is a
backfield. He
monster in
had
the
a
backfield.
big payday. But you want to know why? Because the damn secondary couldn't
The-
tackle his ass when they needed to.
Problem.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying right
Yeah.
there.
Right. Right.
Prime
Right.
example.
Right.
But let me digress. All right.
Mhm.
I mean, he's been in the league 6 seasons. Spent a lot of time with the Bengals. I think it was a good pickup that the Falcons did by getting him in
Mhm.
free agency, and he was able to sit there and contribute like right off the cuff.
Right.
So going in his second season in Atlanta, like the sky's the limit for him. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what he does if he can sit here and match or even do better, for this 24 season as compared to what he did last year. So I'm excited to see him play.
I agree with that. Jesse Bates definitely one of those that you got to keep it. He's definitely one of those up and comers you got to keep an eye on. He's definitely a superior talent, a great athlete, man. He can do a lot of different things across the field and show up and show out when you need him, week to week. And for me, I transited to the number one guy on my list, and I had to go with Antoine Winfield Jr. I mean, what more can I say? He can, in my opinion, do just about anything. He can do the deep portion. Go ahead, check that off. Cover, your backs and tight ends coming out of the backfield or across the middle. Give him a check for that. Can he stop the run? Give him a check for that. Can he blitz? Give him the check for that. And hey, he got the check. For doing all those things.
Mm,
He's the highest, paid safety right now in the league. And
yeah.
you know, I think when I looked at him, in that Tampa defense, they were up and down offensively throughout the year until they got into a rhythm, and some lady luck showed up, towards the back half. But anywhere when you watch him on the field, no matter what position he was put in, coverage, run, pass, pass pro or he's attacking the offensive line. This guy was just everywhere. And to me, he right now has that. He's like that combination of like a Troy Polamalu, every type, player that comes to mind for me, and his talent just pops. And he just had to be my number one guy, and I think he deserved it because he got the bag on top of it. So I went with Antoine Winfield as my number one guy, coming out of
Hmm.
the safety position.
Right. Okay. My number one. No need for a drum roll. I went with. I went with the Steelers. I went with Micah Fitzpatrick.
Good one.
Um,
Good one.
like yeah, I know a lot of the players that I spoke on. We lost them due to injuries, last season and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And Micah, he got affected by that too.
Mm-hmm.
But with the 10 games that he played, he had 65 total tackles. Two of them was assists. Didn't have any picks or sacks or anything like that. But like we we went from a physical game, and when you
Yeah.
look at the way that Micah play,
Mm-hmm.
like you can't sit there and deny his intensity when he's on the field. So,
Mm-hmm.
if he could come back healthy, and give him a good, 15, 16 games, like, one thing we know about the Steelers is that their defense is going to be on top.
Yeah.
Offense, maybe not with their doggone. They're another program with a current and previous QB carousel.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't expect that to be any different. So I know that doggone um, Coach Tomlin, yeah,
Yeah.
he's going to be relying on that. He's going to be relying on that defense like he
Yep.
does every doggone year.
Yep. Yep.
And Micah going to sit there and be in the mix of it too. So he's a true, defensive general when it comes to that squad and everything. So
I
that's
agree.
who I have.
I agree. I think transition in Pittsburgh again, like you say, you said it so well. They're definitely going to uh rely on that defense. I mean, it's Tomlinson does what he does defensively. Uh, I think they're going to be the backbone again when we look at them offensively, who the heck knows what's really going to happen between Russell, and Fields,
Hmm.
battling out for that number one spot. Um, Offensively, they got Pickens and I forget the tight end, Frameth, I think his name is. Sorry if I beat his name up. So they do have some weapons on offense, but again, it's going to be the quarterback play,
Yeah.
and we're looking at that old, and I hate to say, age does not discriminate. Is Father Time finally caught up with Russ, or is he going to be able
Hmm.
to, dig back in that water like that water behind me and find some magic and be able to push Pittsburgh, across that line and get past these 8-8 and 9-8. I mean, Tomlin hasn't had a losing season, but
Yeah.
mediocre is mediocre,
Yeah.
and that's what they've been for the last couple of years. Or is it going to be Fields? Like, is he going to, really be the one? Because I mean, super talented kid. I just think
Hmm.
got a bad break in Chicago. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'll be interested to see if Tomlin, if he gives him the reins and let him really run that offense and see what they can do. Uh, I think they have a chance, especially in that division. It's really no, like Cincinnati. You don't know what's going to happen with Burrow. Like
Yeah.
again, I'm not fearing them like that. I mean, Tennessee. I mean, who's the quarterback? Levis and they got Mason Rudolph now. I think from Pittsburgh. Like again,
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of them. So I
Right.
think Cleveland. We're gonna see Deshaun, and we're gonna get old Deshaun, or like it's just so much in that division that I think Pittsburgh has an opportunity to capitalize on. But it's to be seen, and I think if I'm going to be honest, this season may be Tomlinson. It might be his hardest season
Yeah.
as a coach, because I think
Yeah.
you've pushed it up against the wall 2 or 3 seasons in a row, 8-8, 9-8, whatever it may be. I think this season is going to be the hardest season for him. Uh, but hopefully, like you said, I agree with you. That defense and that secondary, I think, is going to be able to keep them in a lot of close games. Is this
Yeah.
can they push it over the top?
Yeah. I
So
think the issue that Mike Tomlin might have this season is that they got an extra game.
right,
So we've been talking about his streak of being 500 or higher.
right.
Like that could be in jeopardy, and then I think that that could actually have the potential to sit here and put him on the chopping block too.
I
And
agree.
like you need a like we all know like your defense needs to rest.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
So like he's going to have to figure out something with his QB situation to sit here and at least sustain. You know what I'm saying? And get out of those 3rd and 5 or
Exactly.
more, type of situations, just so you don't have that revolving door of his defense going back on the field trying to do a 3 and out and go back and they
Right,
can barely catch their breath and everything.
right,
You're not keeping your players healthy. It's a true sense of fatigue, especially on that defensive side.
right.
And then that's when you sit here and get exploited.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting, man. I look forward to it, and we're gonna be talking about that and more. As we continue this series of conversations. I want to thank everyone, who's joined us tonight.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you taking time, joining us, dropping your comments. It's been another great conversation this week. And look, don't forget, next week we're gonna be back. Part 3 of the series.
Oh,
We're gonna
it's
be going.
about
We're
to
gonna be
get
going. Yeah,
juicy.
we're about to get juicy. We're going on one. We're gonna get the divas at the wide receivers and those corners who
Hmm.
did. Let's keep it real, because they divas too. We're gonna chop it up. I can't wait to hear, because it's gonna be real juicy. And there's a ton of talent, in the NFL at both positions as well.
Yeah.
And I think there might be some surprises. I think there's one or two guys I think most agree on, or not. And I'm gonna also throw in, man. I'm curious to know what your Mount Rushmore is going to be, as far as the wide receiver position goes. I think
Oh wow.
always that's always a great conversation. So we'll
That's
talk
gonna
about
be.
it.
I mean that one's all right. I think I could get by because everyone isn't going to be the same. I
Right.
think at the end of the day, like you know, I might name somebody. You might be like that dude trash. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
we'll sit here and look at the body of work.
Yeah.
And what they had. So yeah, all right. I'll take that challenge.
Yeah. We're gonna dive into that next week, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you again, man, for joining us. It's two mics up, man. We live here on Wednesday. Two mics up, 2 a days, NFL training camp. Myself, My man Big A Sam Adams. You can follow him, at Old Sarge Gaming. Go ahead and give him a shout, support. Give him some love, man. He joining me, taking time out of his schedule. And look, I'm just rolling along, man. Look, season 7, Two Mics Up is coming back on the Mogul TV Global Network, the number one network for positive programming. We're in 45 countries. 100 million viewable subscribers on Amazon and Roku. So go ahead and download the Mogul TV Global app on your device today. And we're going to be coming to you season 7, my all brand new streaming channel, Infusion TV, which will be airing on the Mogul TV network. So more information to come, where you can watch us Monday nights, Fridays. Man, we might just go ahead and stream live there on Wednesdays too. Who knows, man? We're going to just have some fun moving into, the next season. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Sam, I appreciate you, my brother,
Always.
for joining me, man. And hope you and the family have a great rest of your evening. And like we do at the end of each conversation, ladies and gentlemen, going to leave you a couple of things. May you stay safe, stay blessed. Mike's out.